In this video, we are going to discuss mobile phlebotomy, which is the new system we are going to be using to print out our phlebotomy labels to label our blood specimens or urine specimens or any microbiology specimens we send on a patient. So we would start off first looking at our tracker, and we would see that there is a lab category, and we could see that there is a lab order. This will look differently for the sitters. The sitters would have a column called urine, and they would see an order that says urine. This is only because they can only send urine specimens, so that way they don't get confused if there is any other labs. They just will see a urine. But the rest of the process applies the same. So I would see that I have a lab. I could click the little red check mark. That will take me to my lab panel. But this just is showing results of lab. So what we would do is we would want to click orders, and I could see here what I have ordered. So I have a CBC, an ethanol, and a lactic acid that are uncollected and have been ordered. You could also just go to your mobile phlebotomy system and you would see what's ordered, but this is just another way to view if you didn't want to leave the system right away. So I now would go to mobile phlebotomy, which when we go live, it will be a tab at the top of your screen, and when you open up Meditech, that tab will launch as well. And it will look just like this. Mobile phlebotomy is the same username and password you use to log in to the new Meditech system. You will hit sign in. This will launch you to this screen. This screen is where you are going to select that you are sending an ER patient's labs. You will uncheck all of the categories except for ER unless you have an ER hold. And then the next step would require you to select your printer. Your printer is going to be labeled. It's going to be a little gray printer that's going to be on your cart, and on the side of it, it will have a white sticker that tells you what printer you are using. For today's purposes, I am using printer number 11. So you will see ZZ.Phleb and whatever number is assigned to that cart. I will enter it, and remember this will change daily depending on where you're working and what your assignment is and what cart you have. I will then hit OK. This will take me to the next screen. You can just close this screen. This is a collection alert. It does not apply to us. This is simply for the phlebotomist. They are going to be using a mobile system like an iPhone, and this is going to be how they track their lists. So we can just hit close. And now the only location we see is ER because we selected the ER. So here I would click ER, and I can search through all of these patients to find my patient. Or if I do not like this view, I have the option of, instead of clicking the patient, to open it. And what this means is I would find my patient, which is Tess Celine. I can just click in her name and open it. If I don't like having to scroll down through it, you can hit the search patient at the bottom of the screen, and you can scan your patient's bracelet. Once you scan, it will pop up Tess Celine. It is important that you do all of these steps at the bedside because now we are going to be training staff that we are going to be printing our labels at the bedside. It's for a safety reason, and we should be scanning at the bedside. It might be a good idea to maybe have a little cart with you of what you need for blood draws because you don't want to be running in and out of the room, etc. So I would select my Tess Celine, and then it's going to take you through the same process. You would scan the wristband again because now you're verifying it's that patient, whereas before you were searching for the patient. So it's going to be whatever you prefer to do, whether it's the list or scan the bracelet. So I would scan the wristband, and then I can see up here on my left-hand corner, I have a barcode. That means I scanned my patient. Now, I'm going to cancel this for a second to just show you a different option. If, let's say, Tess Celine had come in as a code and I now needed to send her blood, but during a code or an emergent situation, you're not going to sit there and tell everyone to stop compressions or etc., move away, so you could scan the bracelet. So the way you can manually barcode is you would hit the enter code at the bottom of the screen, and what this is asking you for is the patient's account number, also known as the visit number, which is the V number that you see up at the top of the screen right here. So I would enter V, and then you would enter the number immediately following the last 0. So 278. 4, and I can confirm this number is the same number up here, and I would hit OK. Now, instead of seeing a barcode, I would see a keyboard because I manually entered it. This is all trackable, and we are only to do this in emergent situations. I would now hit name and date of birth. This is just a second verifier that I am verifying that it is the correct patient. Moving forward in the future, at some point, we will be able to see the actual patient's picture that is going to be taken at registration. So I would now hit OK. Now the next screen that I get prompted comes up with the patient's orders, so I can see everything that's available to draw on the patient. I want to point out one thing, and we're going to pretend here because we might not be drawing it. So let's say I go into the patient's room and I am drawing everything except for this pink tube. Let's pretend the pink tube is a urine. So we're not going to send this. So we're going to click the pencil and we're going to say not collected because we don't want to collect or send anything that we're not truly sending. The way this system works is that once you hit save and say that you've collected the specimen, you will no longer ever be able to print that label again, which is for safety reasons, so we don't have mislabelings due to that issue. So in this case, I'm pretending my pink tube was my urine, so I hit not collected, and then at the bottom of the screen, I'm going to hit print label. What I want to do here now is I want to uncheck my fake urine order, so my pink tube, which I said was the urine, so that I only get labels for what I'm drawing. If I needed any extra labels, meaning you go in and you're sending a rainbow on someone, but you only have an order for a lavender and an SST, you can enter here how many extra labels you need. And these labels will look different because they no longer have like CBC written on it and you have to cross it off. They're just going to be a longer barcode, and it's just the patient's demographics. The only thing we're going to add on these labels now is our initials, because we're going to scan when we send and it is linked to you. So the lab can actually tell that you sent it. So in this case, I'm going to hit 0 because I don't need to send anything. Or you could just hit cancel. You don't have to enter and say OK. And now it's going to be queued to print. And it will print my labels over to my printer. And you just give it a hard tug to pull off of your printer, which I know you guys can't see in this video, but you would get your labels. You would want them, right with you when you're drawing. I like to tell you to stay on the screen because the new stickers will not print with the color of the tube. That was per the lab's decision, so I like this view because I can see what color tubes I need. Once I'm done, I've obtained all of my blood. I've put my labels on the blood in my initial, so DG, because remember, we're not going to have mnemonics moving forward. We're going to hit OK. If, let's say, I had not been able to obtain a gray, this is where you would now choose the pencil and hit not collected. In the beginning, I knew I wasn't sending the pink, which is our fake urine, but it might happen where you go in, you collect everything, and you can't get a blood culture or you can't get a blue top. You then want to do that again so that when you go to the next screen, you're not required to scan the label, because you only want to scan what you obtain, because otherwise you can never print the label again. So what this means is, moving forward, if a specimen is hemolyzed, the lab will have to re-enter an order in order for us to be able to go in and redraw the patient. So right now, like I said, we've collected everything. We're going to hit OK. And now it's going to prompt you to scan container barcode. So I'm going to scan all my labels. And you just go down your list. And as you scan, you hear the beep. It puts a little gray indicator like scanned on each of those because I collected those 3 specimens. Once I hit save, it's just going to tell me either OK, or in this case, it's telling me I'm sending 3 of the 4 containers. That's because I didn't collect my fake urine order. So I hit OK, and now all of those specimens will drop off of my work list because I've now done all of it. So now I can even see on Test Celine, the only thing she has available is that gray top I couldn't collect and that fake urine, which was the pink tube. They could no longer ever print the labels I sent. Now I would go back to my Meditech tab and I would go to my work list. So I know I'm on Test Celine still. I would go to the work list and I would select what I sent. So you want a chart that you sent the tubes. This is going to take place of that note we would put in SST and lavender drawn and sent, urine trio drawn and sent. We no longer have to put in those notes. So I would find the specimens I sent. So I sent an ethanol. I'm going to check that. I sent my lactic acid and I sent my CBC. And then all I simply do is hit document and I will just hit save and exit. This will then update all of my status on those 3 things I sent to complete. So now if someone were to come into the chart, let's say MST now came in or a nurse came in, they would be able to see that I sent these 3 items on the patient and they're no longer due. Anything that would be remaining, meaning that pink tube or that urine, which still show up here as collect specimen, as a status due. Another view I can take is I can go back to my orders, and now if you notice here, my ethanol, my lactic acid, and my CBC are no longer uncollected. The status will be uncollected if they haven't yet been collected. Once they are collected and sent to the lab, it will go into ordered, and you also will have to remember that on the tracker, you will see a little blue in process in the labs. In this video, we will not because we're in a test mode right now, but you would see a little blue indicator to say it's been received, kind of like now when your lab Word physically turns blue to say that they're processing them. So another view I can also see is if I'm in my orders where I was a second ago, once they're back, it will say resulted, and my indicator on the tracker will turn green, my little check mark. Another thing that's very important that I want to show you guys is if you hit the history tab, this is like our view some, our order history. You would click it, and on here, if I click, for example, my ethanol I just sent, I would be able to see that today at 15:25, Diana collected the specimen, so I had a pre-collection label at 15:24, and at 15:25 I marked it as has been completed. This will happen with any lab order we do. It tracks everything for you. So it tells you when labs were printed, when they were collected, etc. It's just a nice way to go back as a reference if there's any question if something has been sent.